Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Two Guys and Some Horror. In this week's episode, we're picking a movie solely based on it's John Carpenter month, and we really want to do some more guest appearances as well. So we have a guest this week. His name is Mimic.
Am I the whore this week?
You're the horror this week, and damn, that's good already off the bat. But the pick of the week also is John Carpenter's Vampires from 1998. So before we get into the hellos and how are yous, Mimic, why did you pick this film to be your episode?
So this is one of those movies my dad made me watch when I was a kid, and it was pretty cool when I was a kid. I'm like, wow, vampires, James Woods overacting to shit, which he always does, and yeah, I always remembered it fondly. Yeah, I don't know. It was one of those ones I always enjoyed, and John Carpenter obviously made a lot of great movies, a lot of them better than this one. But just a fun movie I liked, and so I saw it was on your list, Curtis, when you guys were first launching the pod, so I'm like, that's one I want to do.
Awesome.
James Woods is a great overactor.
The king.
I think he made this movie. He's actually really hard to work with too. Everybody complains about him, but apparently he and John Carpenter got along really well.
Yeah, that's what I was reading too. So
They seem to be best buds somehow, some way. They worked well together. Perfect.
That's a regular theme with John Carpenter. He tends to just get along with most of the actors, and he tends to recast them in most of his films. This film, though, I think this is one of the very few movies where we don't see recurring cast members.
Not as much. But it didn't stop him from trying, right? He had a lot of intentions when it came to his casting. They just couldn't figure out contracts and other obligations for filming, just didn't allow them to line up. He would have loved Kurt Russell to be the main actor.
I've read so much on that. Like, he said that Bruce Campbell was his number one choice, and then he changed his mind later on.
Well, Campbell was the choice for
like,
Montoya.
Alec Baldwin.
He would have loved Montoya to be Bruce Campbell, but Bruce Campbell turned the option down, which then fell to Alec Baldwin. But Alec Baldwin had a contract with somebody else for another film already. So then Alec was like, hey, just use my brother. And John Carpenter, without seeing any of his previous work or any real work at all from him, just had him do a reading and ended up sticking with him. And I'm really happy that he did. I thought Daniel Baldwin, right?
yeah,
Did a really good job, in my opinion, for this character.
Right. I agree.
I think Mimic might have some more opinion as we get deeper into this movie about how he feels now, since he... Is this your second watch ever, or how many times have you really seen the movie?
so I saw it once when I was a kid. Once it was on TV, just watching it. I think it was on the Stars or something. Just kind of loosely watching it, and then I watched it, twice in the last couple of weeks just to see it, to take notes and stuff, and then get a refresher last night.
Well, we also pushed you off for a week, unfortunately. I apologize.
Yeah.
So that made you have to watch it again, right?
Yeah, just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Nice. Okay, so some quick fun feedback about the movie, and then we'll get a little bit more into the hellos, highs, how are yous. But director, obviously, John Carpenter. The writer for this was, it's credited to John Stakely, who wrote the novel. So there's actually a book called Vampires with a $sign for the S. Clark, did you have a chance to read it by today? I know you wanted to try.
No, I actually haven't, but it's on my list.
Okay. So that's something I'm actually thinking about doing as well, just for fun, because I personally loved this film as a kid and still love it today. I think it's a lot of fun. But the other writer for the screenplay was Don Jacoby, and uncredited is John Carpenter, because they actually worked together a lot to change the novel to a screenplay and kind of rework a lot of the things that we got out of the movie. The budget was $20 million. That's always estimated, and then the body count was around 45. Does anybody else have any numbers for the kill count total?
There was definitely a lot.
Because they kill an entire... Well, we actually don't have a firm body count because of how many people in that town.
Yeah.
But on screen and off screen mention, that seems like a good estimate.
we'll get to that town that you're talking about at the end of our synopsis. But yeah, so before we dive into the movie synopsis and whatnot, how you doing this week, Clark? How you feeling, buddy?
I feel okay, man. I feel okay. My knee's healing. I'm wearing pants again. People aren't staring at me on the street. It's going all right.
Mimic, how's your week going?
It's going good. It's been snowing here for the last 2 days, which is obviously annoying. I hate the snow.
It can really kill the mood.
It really can, but I'm hanging in there.
Good.
Always.
Glad to hear it. I really love watching your stream. We'll talk more about that at the end as well, if you want to. But yeah, I enjoy hanging out with you and watching you play games and edit your videos. I think I like your edit streams a little bit more than your game streams lately.
I like the edit streams too, but we'll talk about that all at the end.
Hell yeah. And then I don't know. For myself, I'm a little down. If I sound sick, I apologize. If I don't have as much energy as I normally do, I apologize. I'm currently battling a double ear infection in my left ear, which these guys can see. I do not have my headset on because if I did, I'd be in pain, miserable, miserable pain. As Mimic pops his ears, and I'm jealous because I wish I could pop my ears. Cool. Well, let's get into the synopsis. So, who wants to kick us off with the beautiful, beautiful start to this Western film?
So,
Oh wait, Clark's
real
quick review.
real quick, this movie is a Western film. Like, this is very much, there's like a sheriff in town. He buys whores for these outlaws, and these guys they're bounty hunters essentially, and they're hunting. Their bounty is vampires. And very quickly, like, if you watch this as a Western, it'll just kind of fit perfectly together, because there's like a old style jail, like a town of like 30 people. It's definitely a cowboy film.
Yeah,
Agreed.
for sure. For sure. I mean, just to get us started off here is like you're to go on the Western theme, you're scrawling over, New Mexico, I think is where they were. Landscapes, just going over deserts, and then you go pop James Woods glasses, or in the binoculars, I think, at the start. I mean, it's a cool little intro, kind of sets the tone of it being like a Western, which, like, when I was a kid, I didn't really think of it like that, but going back and seeing it now is like, oh, this is a cowboy movie, like you said, and like these guys are hunting the big bad villains as cowboys or whatever. I mean, it's definitely like a better way to look at it than like a standard horror film, I'd say. But like, I mean, still good and fun. So
Yeah, it's definitely not a scary movie. It is horror, but it's not by any stretch of the imagination something that would make me as an adult fear vampires. But like when this movie starts out, they go into this kind of derelict house, and they're like, oh, there's a nest here. We got to find the master, kill them all. And they go inside, and they saw through like a little hole through the door, and like the guy's like, all right, boss, let me. He's like, hold on, it's my turn. And James Woods takes off his sunglasses, looks inside, unlocks the door like he's in a rush, and like at that movie, or that moment sets the tone. Sorry, not that movie. Sets the tone for like the entire film.
yeah, that's definitely like one of my, that intro where he sticks his hand through the hole. Like, that's one of my favorite sequences in the whole movie. Like, because that's just like, you can see. I mean, obviously James Woods is coming off as leader of this vampire slaying team. You laughing at me?
Yeah, sorry. It's just he puts his hand through the hole. It's made me giggle a little bit.
That's what I'm here for.
Can we call him by his name, by the way? He's James Woods.
It's Jack
I get
Crow.
that. But it's Jack Crow, which I have to say is probably one of my favorite character names in any horror movie we've seen so far.
All of
Very
John Carpenter's
strong.
main characters have names like that, though. All of them, and like
Nada?
all the side characters.
Really?
is
We'll
like,
get there eventually next week. But
well,
Nada?
there's Boone, Bambi,
I don't know, Jack Crow. Like Jack Crow.
Mac Ready.
McCready. What are you? Mac Ready.
Mac Reedy.
You son of a gun. Oh, man. I wanted to roast you for that so bad, but honestly, I don't. It's Mac Ready. It really is. Like, if you read it the way it's written, it's Mac Ready.
It's McCready. I know it's McCready, but
I know.
it's Mac Ready.
It's Mac Ready. Oh, my God. Okay, so we get one of the first lines where, in this scene, when he's doing all this, you could tell he's obviously the strong male character in the movie. His quote right off the bat is just strictly by the books today, boys. Like he's setting this like we're going in here and we're gonna clean house. This is it. This is what we're doing.
Paints himself as the leader very well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He fills
definitely.
that role.
I don't think he could have cast that role better. Personally, I think James Woods is a great person to have for that role.
I think Kurt Russell may have made it a bit more interesting, but this was fine. And when the first goon kind of shows up at this point when they're inside the house, or they call the baby vampires goons. This is pretty friggin' awesome because they what's his face, Montoya, who is played by Daniel Baldwin. He's kind of the romantic hero of the film. He's in outside by the truck, and they have one of those tow
Toe
Oh,
hitch,
winch.
devices.
toe
Yeah,
wench,
tow hitch.
the wench.
No, tow wench. Yes, a wench. And they shoot the vampire with the arrow, and it wenches the vampire outside, which the vampire immediately catches fire. And I thought, I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm invested in this film already because this is completely unique. I haven't seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I really like
Yeah,
the two ideas in this movie that I think are my favorite. Right, is the set. They have just the best sets. Like when you walk into this vampire nest, it looks like something that you'd want to see at a haunted house. Like when you go in October and you're going to a haunt, this is the kind of set that I'd want to see. So that's the first thing that I really enjoy about this movie is every set, everything that you're in is pretty spooky. And then the second thing is I love the idea of vampire hunters. I don't know why, but it's really exciting. Like the idea of these guys going out and actually attacking the attackers, right? Like a modern Van Helsing is what I consider Jack Crow to be, which is really cool. So they
No,
kill
I
the
mean-
first vampire. Oh, go ahead, Mimic. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that whole sequence up to the first goon kill is like might be the most memorable in the whole movie because it's. I mean, you have this team and they're like stalking their way through the house and just like going through all these different set pieces. It's creepy, and then the one guy has the body fall on him, and it's like everybody's like freaking out, really tense.
Yeah.
And then once the first goon hits, like that's when the pace just shifts, and that whole like first house is such like an awesome action-packed, energy-filled sequence. It's like really, really good. And then just I mean the first kill, boom, shoots a crossbow, rips her out of house. Jack Crow blasts her hand off because she's grabbing onto the pole. I love that like effect, just how good that looks, and then bursts into flames. Not awesome looking flames, but I mean still fun.
What do you mean not awesome looking flames? Like I have a note later on because when they kill, we'll get there, but when they kill a master, like the colors change because the more powerful of a vampire, the more chemistry they decided to use in their science experiment of burning different periodic elements. So it reminds me of science class back in like high school when you would build or burn different periodic elements and you'd get different colors based on what you were burning. But anyways, I thought
they keep
the
quoting-
fire was awesome.
But they keep like inciting or repeating like rules at this point too in the film. Is like rule
Yeah.
number 11, or I don't remember the numbers of the rules, but this whole sequence was meant to paint these vampire hunters as good at what they do. Like
Yeah.
they did a great job because they kill like 9 vampires. They have all their skulls mounted on the truck on the Jeep at this point, and they're like, oh, not. And then I think they get the names wrong in the script here. I think the character's name was. It was like I don't think it was Bambi, but he like slaps one of the characters in the back and calls him Boone. I'm like, isn't Boone the other guy? So there are a
maybe.
couple gaps here and there in the script, but
I didn't
Yeah.
notice that, so thank you for pointing
Yeah, I
that out.
didn't
That's
pay
good to know.
attention.
So after they
Yeah,
take
and
out this nest, they don't find what they're looking for. They're looking for a master. They're looking for the one, the guy who started this nest, right? They always refer to it as the master. And they go back to the hotel. They realize they
Before we
didn't
get there,
Okay.
we can't gloss over when they kill that first vampire. Montoya, Danny Baldwin, picks up the head or the skull on his knife, and he just goes like, "Nothing like a little head, eh, Padre?"
Thank you for keeping the quotes in. Yep.
He's got a lot of good dick jokes in the whole movie, and it's
Yeah.
whenever James Woods makes a wood joke, it's like, hey, James Woods is giving everybody wood.
It's good.
Eh.
I really like
This is a callback, by the way. So
Okay.
there's a reason why he mentioned that, because later on in the film he brings up more penis jokes. So I'm
Oh hell
glad he
yeah, it
kind of
does.
pulled that out.
I would say his
No
jokes
pun
get bigger.
intended.
I mean, better as we go on.
All right, that pun was intended.
I think my favorite quote though from the intro is when they first find that poor human that's dried out and bled dry or whatever, and Montoya is outside trying to get more information from them, like, "Hey, what's going on in there? Give me some updates." And they explain, "Hey, it's a dead one. She's dry or whatever." And they go, we'll save her for you, Montoya." That is some heavy foreshadowing, dude. Later on about saving vampire-esque dead girl, in my opinion, for
Yeah,
Montoya.
they saved the goon for him
Yeah.
They definitely
because they wanted him to wench her out.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
but you know what I'm talking about. We'll get there.
No, I definitely think it foreshadows Montoya as horny boy.
Sure, sure. I mean, he strips
You know, I didn't
Katrina
think of
butt
him.
naked.
I didn't perceive him that way. I did, like, I was kind of, I don't know. The whole, we'll talk about it later.
I
we'll
love
get
Mon.
there.
I love all these characters, so I really can't talk too poorly about them. I don't think he was overly sex crazed. In fact, I feel like
don't
we
either.
barely get any sex craze out of him realistically, other than the jokes that he makes. Right?
His kiss just grossed me out. Like, that scene's gross. But
This is weird. I have a few notes about sex crazed Danny Baldwin.
I just heard pages turn,
moving-
and I saw a paper.
moving to the
Like, you
hotel.
have so many jokes.
moving to the hotel, like, the sheriff shows up. He's like, "Oh, I spent so much time getting all these whores, buying out all these whores for them, and all this alcohol." And like, before this scene, we see what we assume as the audience, like the master coming out from under the ground, digging his way out, and they're like, James Woods bothered. His character Jack Crow's bothered by this vampire not being there. There's like usually the master. It wasn't by the books. It was throwing him off, and like the rules are changing in his mind. But all his men are getting drunk and they're all partying. And in my mind, it's kind of like, isn't this kind of the worst time to be doing this? And they're all sleeping with whores. They're all a bunch of naked women running around. They're
Well,
all
they're
drunk.
talking about what they do for a living. They're like, "We kill vampires." No, really, really. Listen, you whores, we really do. And I'm like, why are you telling them that? Like, why would you let them in on any bit of information about what you do in real, like, for work? Just do what you're supposed to do, what you want to do with them, and get out of there. Like, oh man, so much
They're
time
trying
is
to impress
wasted.
him, man.
Yeah, I guess.
Don't you think that would scare them more than impress them?
They were
I
already
mean,
paid
it
for
is-
at that point.
As soon as the master shows up, well, Jack Crow, the main character, meets Cheryl Lee, who's you could tell she's the heroine of the film just by looking at her. She's the most attractive of all the hookers. She's cleaned up. She's got, I don't know, for whatever reason, she's like, "I'll meet you in your room." The first person to meet the head master vampire, who at this point we don't know his name, is her, and it's like he's performing fellatio on her and biting her at the same time.
Yeah, I don't really.
I don't
get
think
that.
he has to. So here's my take on it, okay? Because I knew we'd talk about this scene, and it does appear that he's performing fellatio. But I think vampires are so in historical writings about vampires and fictional writing, they're just meant to be these seducers and these sexual beings that vampires just give off this like overly. I don't know. I'm just exploding with sexualness. Like he just had to bite her inner thigh, and he knows right where to bite her. That it just sends her into orgasmic heaven. I don't think he would have performed proper fellatio. I just think he had to bite her in the right spot, and that's all it took. That's
Regardless of it being proper or not,
that's
it was
10-year-old
definitely
Curtis
a sexual
right there.
scene.
Yeah, I'm not saying he actually filleted her, but like
Yeah.
it definitely looked like he was filleting her.
That's all it takes,
And-
man.
I think that was what they were going for, to be
Yeah.
honest. I definitely think they were trying to portray, okay, now they're getting into the super sexy times and he's giving her pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I hope she got all she was worth from him.
I mean, who was it? So the master shows up at the party. He breaks in. Let's jump into that, because this scene is probably the master showing that he is the most badass character of the film.
Right.
Well, and to be fair, it's our only real gore of the movie. So if you're like
Well, it's
any of the gore actually in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
well, it's his hands. Well, no, there's more gore later on, just not as much. He's just like shoving his hand through people. He's just like ripping people in half, putting his hand through, karate chopping them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think of all the scenes, this was the one that stuck with me most from like when I was a kid. Obviously, because you just have lots of hooker titties, but like,
Hey, don't leave out
just
the
the
butt
first,
cheeks, by the way. Whew.
yeah,
That butt cleavage.
basically, yeah, a lot of butt cleavage, a lot of just like hookers that are way too good looking for small town New Mexico, and just I mean absolute brutality from Valek. And you know we talked about before how that first scene establishes these guys as good at what they do, right? They're master vampire killers, you know, killed 9 vampires without losing anybody, and then he just tears through all of them, especially Batman Cop, or the guy from the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
Just it's like, oh, gonna go on a beer run,
I
psych,
think that was Bambi.
you're in half.
So that
Bambi
guy has
opens
a
the
pretty
door.
good career, by the way. I mean, he's been in a lot of movies. He was also the other movie that comes to mind is Too Fast, Too Furious. He's the cop who gets the rat sat on his stomach with the metal
Yep.
tin. They heat it up so the rat starts digging into his stomach.
That's a good scene.
That's a great scene. And anyway, so he's had a great career. I'm glad that he's had a good career. I like him as an actor. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Valak tears through these guys and guys and gals. But you know who? So one gentleman gets hit. It's the Native American character, and I don't know what his name is in the movie because I didn't spend the time to go read through the credits. But it's the Indian guy, and he gets hit and thrown across the room. Valak goes and continues to slaughter people, and this tough motherfucker comes back for round 2 with Valak. I think he's the only one who got hit by him and came back for a round 2, which was pretty cool.
And they showcase him as kind of like one of the older, more experienced members at the beginning.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
no, they all died. They're all drunk. They're all off guard. If they weren't, who knows how things would have turned out. And this vampire is apparently he's stronger than any master they've faced before. He's
Yeah, it's a rule.
super strong. He's flying. He's able. I don't know if he like jumps really far or if he flies, but Jack Crow, Montoya, the two main characters, the 2 leads, they grab Cheryl Lee, or Katrina, as her name in the film is, and they're like, we can use her to get back at him. Everybody's dead. They take him. They drive off, and that's when the kind of chase ensues. And he's showing that he can fly, and they shoot him in the head, and they get away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
They have the
and then
rule where you
that's when
can't take down a master at night, right? Like that's a big rule that they all understand. So even to your point, even if they weren't all drunk, hopped up on hookers and cocaine and whatever, they didn't have a chance. I mean, he came at night. He waited. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
If they were ready for him, I don't think it would have turned out the way it did, to be frank. I feel like they could have won, but they were definitely like set up in some way, shape, or form, because the lead Valek knows the master's vampire's name's Valek. He knew Jack Crow's name. He even mentioned it when he saw him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And like that even set Jack Crow off. So during this conversation between him and Daniel Baldwin's character Montoya, he's like, hey, he knew my name. We were set up. Blah blah blah. So they decapitate the heads. I don't know if the decapitation happens before or after they meet with the church.
Before,
But
he has to bury everyone before.
Yeah.
They can leave.
So he drops, or they crash the car and walk to a gas station or something. Daniel Baldwin Montoya steals some poor guy's car, and they drive back to the hotel.
guy with Buick, and it's a Camaro. He's credited as guy with Buick, and the car is a Camaro. So
Talk about gas with this movie, jeez.
nah, that's pretty
But
funny.
then they go back to the motel, get their their Jeep and the like raid van, I guess.
Right.
And then that's when Jack Crow tells Montoya to take the girl to whatever the town was. It's not important. And then says, "I got to take care of all these bodies."
Yeah, he's got to do
And
it so basically, this is another one of their rules as hunters, because if you don't, basically the vampire lore here in this movie is if you don't take care of those bodies, if you don't decapitate them, bury the bodies, and separate the head from them, they will come back as vampires. So
Right.
that gives us a lot of foreshadowing, or we could put the pieces together when it comes to the small town later to give us kind of a better number of what's going on. But basically, Jack Crow has to get his ass back to the hotel, the motel where they were, bury those bodies
There's-
before his buddies come back as vampires.
They said it was like a 48-hour time frame before somebody like completely turns.
Yeah.
Was
I think
When
what
they're
they
bit.
mentioned.
that was their.
When they're bit. I don't know about when they're killed. I don't know if there's some kind of difference there. I mean, how the hell is what's-his-face going to come back from being split right down the middle?
Yeah,
Well, they
I
even
mean,
mentioned like vampires don't. We don't know enough about vampires because they stay hidden. They don't. They won't let us know.
Well, and Jack
Yeah.
talks about later on about his dad turning. It took 5 days for his dad to turn.
Right. And he hid it from his family.
Yeah. So 48 hours
And then
is
he killed
their,
his
I think their, that's when the turning probably starts. It's 48 hours, and then it's probably you're fully turned maybe after 5, but I don't know. I don't know exactly how it works. Nobody knows. This is the problem with vampires. All right. So just to help us
But-
keep moving forward,
We-
what do you
we
why
should go
didn't he
to the-
cut the hookers' heads off? He left the
He-
hookers' heads on.
He lit the building on fire and they were essentially cremated. But then the news report later on, I know we want to move on, but they're like 19 bodies were decapitated and they're buried far away. And it's like he only did that to his team, but
Yeah.
there's another gaffe in the film. But going back to the church, we're introduced to the cardinal, who is a cardinal of the Catholic Church, and we discover that Jack Crow is working for the church. He gets funding from the church to be a slayer. We're also introduced to another one of the priests, who's kind of like this weak guy who's always like, language, please. I think like
Padre Adam.
was
Yeah.
Padre, but keeps calling him Padre, but like Adam, yeah. And we find out that this vampire's name is Valak.
This is where we get our
the
exposition,
Vatican-
right?
Right, we get our exposition, and Jack and the cardinal have like a falling out, not a falling out, but like a fight, a little argument, and then Padre Adam, I'm just gonna call him Padre from now on, goes with Jack, and they have like a bunch of more boner jokes. Like he's like, when I punched it, did it give you wood?
Yeah. So
You got to give the quote. You got to give the quote its full due. You can't half-ass it.
I mean,
Can I ask you something,
This-
Padre? When I was kicking your ass back there, you get a little wood? Thank you.
mahogany.
No, that's
Said
later.
mahogany, and
That's
then he
later.
says,
No, he says mahogany, and
Does
no, he
does
says
he keep going
mahogany,
here?
and then he
Okay.
says another thing. He says the three things. He says mahogany and then obsidian.
Obsidian?
He says obsidian. I'm pretty sure. No, ebony.
Ebony.
He says
yeah, I think it's ebony. Yeah.
Yeah, ebony, not obsidian, because that'd be a little bit too hard for him. But
It's almost
Yeah.
unbreakable.
Yeah, need a diamond pick for that.
oh, shit.
Or a wither.
Minecraft. All right.
So Katrina.
And you also,
Go ahead.
while Jack Crow and Padre are talking in the van, you also get a little exposition that Valak is looking for the Black Cross, like something that could theoretically make vampires walk in daylight. So that's where we get kind of like finish off that this is what bad guys looking for after they talk about the map and some stuff. But then, yeah, we're back at the hotel where Curtis was going to go.
So Katrina is beginning to. I'm just going to fast forward us a little bit, but Katrina starts to get her visions. She doesn't really know what's going on. She doesn't understand it, but Montoya's there with her, and he's got her tied down to that bed, butt ass naked, face down.
And she screams, and he's like, he's. I don't like him. I don't like him as a character because he seems like the abusive boyfriend, and like she bites him. Like eventually, it's at one point, and then he
Mhm.
starts hitting her. Why'd you bite me? He starts beating the crap out of her, and it's like, all right,
So he
dude.
also
And at
doesn't
this point, he's in love with her after he beats the crap out of her.
well.
Yeah.
All right, so not to breeze through this, but he doesn't think of her as a human. I mean, she's a vampire. He thinks of her as like an animal at this point, something that they should have killed and not kept
Mhm.
alive.
Not when he hits her. That's when he's sympathized with her. Like that's when he has started to fall for her, and then he hits her. That's the point where he is the abusive boyfriend character because he's already there. He's already at the point where he's attracted to this woman. He's showcased it.
We're
Then
going
he just hits
to
her.
we're going to agree to disagree. I don't feel like he has any feelings for her until after she bites him, because
No,
that
I'd
is
say it
also
was
something
before.
that is known in vampire lore, where you kind of become attached to your vampire turn, like whoever turns you.
That's the
Stockholm
master though,
syndrome.
and she was not a master. There was no mention of that in the lore whatsoever. That seems like headcanon to me.
Okay,
I'm gonna argue that.
okay, I'll take that. I'll accept that.
But even before like romantic attraction, like he strips her naked, chains her to a bed, and like doesn't necessarily get on top of her, but gets about as close to mounting her as you can.
As he could
Oh
Like-
no,
in,
yeah.
in this film.
Yeah. Right. So like, and we've talked about before, she's obviously like a good-looking. She was named to a list of top 50 sexiest vampire characters like ever.
Yeah.
I mean, so like obviously she's the heroine. Montoya like gets on top of her, and like that's where I think that my horny boy comment from earlier, like he strips her down. Who knows what he did when she was passed out, and
Yeah, and you don't need to strip her down. I mean, I
Yeah.
agree 100% here, but that's still him stripping her down is long before she bites him, long before he
Yeah.
hits her. I don't know his theory behind stripping her down. That doesn't make much sense, other than getting her out of her bloody rags, I guess. But
I
there's
mean, like,
safer ways to do
yeah.
it than stripping her down.
So
So that doesn't make sense at all. But the whole love thing, I don't know when he fell for her. But here's the deal: we know he falls for her.
which
Right.
was weird, really. But anyhow, aside from us arguing on that, we don't. I Valak has gotten the cross at this point. She's connected to him. She sees it. She points it out. He's got it.
right. So Valak kidnaps a priest, and that's when like her first vision is the process of him kidnapping the one priest, and Crow and Padre are investigating, trying to find out what happened. And that's when they talk to, I think they get confirmation from the cardinal at one point. But we see the scene through
Katrina's vision.
Katrina's eyes again,
Yeah.
that the priest points out where this cross that Valak's been searching for is hiding, and then Valak
Wait.
and 7 other masters,
Yeah.
I think, go and wipe through a
They
Old mission.
savagely tear through a monastery.
yeah.
I just want oh man, just the thought of like, I tried to count how many different priests I saw get thrown about. I counted 16. I'm pretty
Yeah, there
sure
was a
there was
lot.
more than that.
They said, so when they they find out all this information, like between Jack Crow and Padre, like there's a bunch of fighting, and then he's like, I'm
Mhm.
starting to like you, but I'm gonna shoot you in the crotch or something. So he's like cutting him, he's beating the crap out of him to get him to actually talk, to get information. And apparently Valak was created by the Catholic Church.
Yep.
Right. This is where like Valak's backstory starts to come in. He was a former Catholic priest, turned against the church, led an uprising. The church thought he was possessed and tried to exorcise him. Exorcism didn't quite work, turned him into a vampire, but the ritual wasn't complete. This cross that he's been searching for, the cross of Versailles or whatever, I thought they were saying Versailles wrong for a while, but it's something else.
So they did the cross to finish that ritual that was exorcising him.
Mm-hmm. That way, Valak would no longer be vulnerable to the daylight. And then we see Valak get this cross. That's, bad things are happening.
Sounds very similar to another movie from '98. Oh yeah, Blade.
Which
An
one? The
ancient.
second one? The third
No, the
one?
first one. So
Oh,
so
right.
you have Deacon Frost, who's trying to become a daywalker like Blade, and has to perform an ancient ritual with other powerful vampires around him. Anyways, we don't have to break apart Blade right now, but I just found that very interesting. I was reading online about this movie, and there was comments constantly going back and forth about how these movies came out the same year, have very similar stories, but one is a western and one is more of a urban telling of vampire slaying, which I thought was. I love Blade. I think it's a great movie, and I think it appealed to everybody, not just urban people, but whatever. I guess that's how some people perceive it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that between Blade until you mentioned it.
Well, there you go,
Yeah.
Clark. Fun fact for you.
It was a fun fact.
I think Padre was actually in both movies too. I think I saw that
What?
somewhere.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. We'll have to double check
He's
that afterwards. That's cool.
I feel like Padre is my favorite character in this film, and we'll get to why
We'll
later.
get to favorite characters. Yeah. So
I,
here's where the real western I think begins for everyone.
well,
'Cause
when
you
they get to Santiago,
yeah,
Yep.
and we get some more freely given information about the town, because Father knows roughly it was a small town of about 30 people. He says
he said 30, maybe more,
30,
probably
maybe
more.
more. Yeah.
And he said how many of them have turned. He's like probably half. So like, we think there's as 15 to as many as 30 vampires
Yeah.
that were created.
They notice that they're probably all inside of the old prison or the old jail, right?
Mhm.
Man, this is where the movie gets a little redundant. It repeats kind of the intro to the film, but this time things don't really go the way as it was planned because it's two people, three I guess, doing.
And they're all masters.
Well, it's three. Sorry, it's three hunters doing what nine hunters were doing in the first 15 minutes of the movie, right?
Well, 2 hunters and a priest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I gave three as kind of like a. He was trying to help.
We'll even mention it. He's like, we got 3 hunters, and then Daniel Baldwin's like, we have 2 hunters.
We have two hunters. Yep. But I think he does good. I don't know. I'm torn on this because Montoya goes in with them. They all three go in initially, right? And they have that first scuffle, and Montoya takes one. How do you like your steak,
Montoya
bitch?
Jack.
And then
I'm noticing a trend here in all of John Carpenter's films. There's usually a fist fight between the heroes.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. And going back into the jail, which is the best constructed building, they go in there to kill the vampires. They mess it up. They kill a couple of the masters, but they're about to leave. And
who's the bait?
I believe Katrina is because they want to utilize her to get to Valak.
So Padre's
Yeah,
the bait.
Oh,
So
right.
before where Clark is, right? They lure out 2 masters, I think, and I think they kill 2 goons, like at the
Right.
very start, and then Padre, or they're talking about. I think all the masters are on like the second level, and they have to go up this elevator, and they're talking about which one of Jack, Montoya, and Padre has to lure them out,
Yes.
and so they have to
The
tow.
elevator.
Yeah, they have to tow the vampires out with the car, and Montoya and Jack are like, well, which one of us is going to do what in the elevator? And Padre will drive, and Padre's like, I can't drive. I never learned. It's like, this is a fight or flight situation. You can't just figure out. I think the Jeep was a stick, but like, you can't just figure out this is what I have to do
Can't
real
just put
quick
it-
and throw it in reverse.
You can't just put it in R.
He
Like,
knew how
that's
to
the
go in
one thing.
reverse.
Yeah.
I don't. So like during the winching scene, like one of the masters just breaks the winch, like that gets taken out very quickly. Like they
Yep.
no longer. He's like, why didn't you tell me they could do that? I didn't know they could do that.
I didn't know.
I know they could
I
do that.
didn't know. My
And
favorite
I
quote from
like,
this scene is, "Okay, Padre, lather your ass, or lather you up and shave your ass. You're the bait." Like that's my. I don't know why, but that was the quote that stuck out to me best during this scene. Whenever Padre is like gearing up, he's got the neck protector on.
hmm
They're sending him up. He's the one who's going to help lure the vamps from the second level into the elevator to bring them up, so that way they could hopefully stake them and bring them out to the
you got to
sunlight.
be fleet of foot, Padre.
Fleet
I
of
can do
foot.
that. You sure you
They,
can? I played soccer. Soccer?
And then he's like, I think I'm gonna. Jack Crow's like, I think I'm gonna go. And then Padre's like, no, I got this. I got this. It's like, nah,
he
soccer doesn't
does.
count apparently.
It is Padres kind of his fault but at the same time, like time's not on their side, and the sun's setting, so it's time for them to leave.
Right.
Yep.
And by the time they leave, Valak's already on their ass. Everybody gets separated.
hmm
Jack gets kidnapped, and
Padre ducks into a saloon.
Padres hiding in a cafe or saloon, and Montoya and Katrina escape in the jeep.
Right.
So
So this is
after,
where the
is this
plot
when Jack
twist
wakes
comes.
up? Is that
Yeah,
where you want to go to
so
next? Okay.
yeah, so like Jack doesn't know why Valak isn't killing him, essentially.
hmm
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I guess so. To be fair, so Montoya drives away with Katrina, as Jack's getting kidnapped. Padre jumps into that
hmm
saloon or cafe or whatever. Montoya drives away with Katrina, and before it fades to Jack waking up, Katrina bites into Montoya's neck, and this is
It's bef-
where.
it's that happens after I think Jack wakes
So
up.
I think what happens is Valak kicks Jack's ass,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
Jack's like,
happens.
"Why aren't you just killing me?" Then, poof, we get our
Cardinal.
big twist of the movie. Cardinal Abel, I think his name was, who was explaining all this stuff to Jack at the very beginning, is working with Valak um, to help him complete this ritual. Then fades to black, and then it goes to the
Right.
Jeep where um, Montoya and Katrina are driving. Katrina, this is day 4 or 5 at this point. She's turned, bites into Montoya's neck, um, bleeding him, presumably
Dry.
dead for
Yeah.
a second. Yeah.
Yeah, this part of the movie is kind of a bit goofy to me because, well, we find out, like you said, like Cardinal Alba, he essentially says, "Oh, I want to be immortal. I don't want to die. I'm old,
hmm
and this is the deal we made."
When he's
But
scared, he doesn't know what's going to happen after. He doesn't know if there's a god. Like he
Yeah.
basically all this religion that he's been following his entire life. He now all this he doesn't trust it because he doesn't.
he's
Yeah.
seen no
He's never
miracles.
witnessed any blessings. He's never seen any miracles. He's like casting it all out. He's like, screw it. I might as well just join Valak.
And
Right.
exorcisms create vampires.
So this is something I actually noticed on my second time rewatching the movie last night was in the very beginning in the motel scene, they're talking about we slay vampires. We know vampires are real. Then Montoya says, yeah, and we also know God's real. Something kind of like a cast off line in that moment. And then, Cardinal is here at the end saying, I don't know God's real.
Right.
So it's like a callback to that first sequence, which is, just a fun little detail I noticed the second time through.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it during. No, I really don't like the Cardinal. So, but during this process, so Montoya's been bit. He's in the car. He's kind of passing out. He's about to pass out. We move on,
Yeah.
and we have the rituals beginning. We see the Padre on top of the roof. Looks like he's getting ready to take an action, and then Montoya kind of pulls out the gun, and he makes like 3 shots, and which would not heat up the barrel,
Yeah.
enough to where you wouldn't even be able to touch it, and then he cauterizes his wound, apparently, just with the heat of the barrel itself. And that was a little.
This is the second time he's done that, right? Because
Yeah.
when he got
when
bit,
right.
he also tried to cauterize it with the lighter. He heats.
Yeah, he cauterized his wound with the lighter when he got bit.
The lighter makes more sense than the gun.
It does.
Yeah.
What I mean, I don't. So I'm not a big gun enthusiast, or I don't go shooting very often. But what? I mean, he's got a gun that's what, like a semi-auto?
It's like like a theoretical submachine gun. He empties
Okay.
like I don't know, seven
Not
or
even
eight
a third.
shots. Not
Yeah.
even, yeah, like half a magazine
And
probably.
that's definitely not going to heat up the barrel, right?
Not to the point where it would cauterize a wound.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like a brand, like it's hot enough where the steel itself is red and kind
Hmm.
of lit up, and
Okay.
at that point you essentially brand your wound closed.
Hmm.
Um, a fire wouldn't do it instantly, like unless you have like a log that's been burning for a while, and at that point you have to hold it on the wound for a little bit.
Yeah.
But even then, it's a little goofier, but suspense of disbelief works for the movie.
Yeah,
It's another gaff.
I think it's just designed to show, oh, look at Danny Baldwin, he's tough. He's like coming through, pulling out and still like trying to fight, keep going,
I
which he has been for
genuinely,
the last 2 days since he got bit.
I genuinely feel as the movie goes on, his character is less and less a good actor. Some of the
Hmm.
ways that he delivers lines get worse. Some of the things he does just don't. I've watched this movie, I don't know, 20 something times, and I've never believed the cauterizing of the wound with the gun. Like, he barely even
Right.
he doesn't even put the barrel on himself. He puts, like, where the sight is almost
Yeah,
up to his
like
neck.
the iron sights on himself. That's
Yeah,
definitely not hot.
that's definitely not going to be hot. So, no, I think that's something really funny to point out, Clark. I think that's a great point. It's just another one of
Right.
those, like, yep, I guess for the movie we'll let it slide, but that shit just doesn't work. That
I
just
agree with
doesn't
you
work.
though too on his acting. He's not a great actor, but he's not in a lot of movies. He's not in a lot of TV shows. He's
Right.
he's a Baldwin brother. How many Baldwins are there? There's like 8 of them.
And there's a bunch, and only one that matters. So
And none of them are bald, and none of them are winning.
Alec might be. He was
Okay.
on 30 Rock. That show had a good run.
I'll cut that. Um, fuck it. I'll leave it in. Okay. So let's get to the most action-packed part of this movie. Yeah, shall we?
Yeah.
Then we'd have to rewind all the way back to the motel killing scene because the action towards the end of this movie isn't that great. It's not the most action-packful moment of the movie, but it's pretty cool. During
Yeah.
the ritual, we get Father Captain Padre up on the top of a truck. So it's Cardinal. What was his name again? Cardinal. I can't remember his name, but the cardinal is trying to perform the ritual. He cuts
Alba.
Jack's Alba. Thank you.
Cardinal
He
Alba.
cuts Jack's
Jessica Alba.
leg, and then presses on the jeans to spill the blood into the cup. And then Valak drinks from it, and then as he's performing it, the Padre aims the shotgun down and just blows the cardinal away. Right?
Yeah, and then he's like, "You can't complete your ritual, no." And Valk's like, "Fuck you! You're gonna complete the ritual."
So then he puts the
But then-
gun under his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably like the best thinking that we get out of any character in the movie is like, how do I stop this ritual? How do I stop this ritual? Oh, let's kill the guy performing it. Boom, great shot. Probably not lethal with that gun from that distance, but whatever. And then he's like, "You'll do the ritual. Psych, I'm going to blow my own head off." It's, better than you succeed or you winning, which, great move. And then, attaboy, Padre, fuck with him. Great line from James Woods there. I mean, that's just like that's when, Padre turns into like more of a hero character. Like we're kind of seeing him transform from like wide-eyed, I'm
Yep.
so happy to be here, I've read all about you, to like, here I am taking action as
Oh my
like part
god,
of the
you guys are
vampire
so
slayer.
cool! As he pushes up his glasses, and then now he's
It's where he
taking
becomes
off
Kurt
his
Russell.
glasses.
He is Kurt Russell. He's Kurt Russell, the actor at this point. He is
Great job.
transformed.
Yeah, that's
Not in
great.
real life, but he characterizes what Jack Russell would have. And if Jack Russell were to play the Padre, I couldn't see him doing it any differently.
Mm-hmm.
So, Valak goes to then burn Jack Crow's nuts, and James Woods has another great line there. He's like, "Hurt! Come on, Padre! He's my nuts are getting a little bit toasty here," or whatever he says.
My nuts are on fire
My
here.
nuts on fire. And then all I keep picturing is him playing the character in Small Soldiers. So Montoya drives by in the Jeep, stands up as the Jeep is driving, shoots the crossbow perfectly above Jack's head, although he ducks, so I guess he helps him a little bit, and then just yanks that crucifix out of the ground and drags his ragged body down the road for a couple of minutes.
That would not be pleasant.
Nah, that would he would have one hell of a concussion for sure.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like, that movie really set the bar for this movie. It was like, oh, cool, that was really well done. But if you think about it, in reality, he'd probably be dead. That cross, the weight of the cross, like the cross would have fallen over, and then just Jack would be like crushed.
Yeah, I mean, I started thinking about that because I'm like, okay, if you shot it perfectly, got the cross, cool. You're pulling it top down. He's probably going face down, not back down.
Probably.
Yeah, we're exactly what I was thinking too. Or the arrow itself would fall out. I don't think the barbs would be enough
to hold it in there.
I think the arrow would come out before, unless unless it was in there good enough. But cross falls over. Jack Crow is now free.
Mm-hmm.
We now have the fight between the two main badasses in the film ready to go.
After 600 years, how's that dick working? I'm sorry.
So as the cross is falling over, the sun's coming up, which is like, so the ritual had to be done at sunrise.
Yep.
So now when they're stopping the ritual, the sun's coming up, which turns the tide in their favor because now the vampires can't fight in the daylight.
All the masters run, they flee, but Valak heads to, it's like a garage, it looks like a repair shop maybe in the town.
Yeah, something like that.
And that's where we get that face-off between Crow and Valak. And it's an okay fight. There's not really much to talk about
Well, he stabs Crow with the cross, and Crow's trying to
Crow
touch
stabs
it,
Valak?
he can't.
Yeah, Crow stabs
Valak. Crow stabs Valak. My bad.
No, you're good.
But he stabs him, and Valak's trying to pull the cross out, and then Jack just pulls down the ceiling.
Yeah, he just throws himself into a pre-cut log, it looks like.
Yeah, something, the town's derelict, right? So, they're fighting. Valak's like, you can't kill me, Jack. I think he knocks Crow away, and then, Crow looks up, sees the sun kind of creeping through, and just kicks down one log that somehow was supporting all of the weight of the roof, and that pops down, and
then all of the sunlight just comes through. Little beams don't do anything to Valak. Of course, it's got to be direct, big, gaping hole of sunlight.
He's apex vampire. So
it's ridiculous. Oh man, the end of this movie is literally the worst. I really am not a fan of the end of this movie. I wish they would have done it differently. Even now, okay, so we get past that. Yay, the vampire hunters win. So we think.
Yep.
But now we get the official Montoya Katrina love interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to kill her. He's also been bitten. Jack Crow's like, I can't believe you. The kiss. You go back to the kiss.
There's blood all over. It's his blood all over her mouth, and then he just makes out there and just
he loves the way it tastes.
Maybe wipe her mouth first.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood, but when they do, I make out with them.
When they do, I get supremely aroused.
It's that damn vampire lore.
She's in the sunlight with him. She's not a vampire anymore because she turned before, and now she's fine. So
you're gonna have to say that one more time. So she's in the sunlight and she's okay.
She's okay, but she turned into a vampire earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
he's got her in the shade of the Jeep, right? Do you think there's enough shade there? Kind of like the garage idea?
No, not in the least. Jeeps are not very good for hiding sun.
I think she was in the van. I think they were in the big van.
Oh, they are in the van. You're right. She's in the back of the van, completely enclosed, with no sunlight touching her.
But even so, there was definitely had to be instances of sunlight between. I think he hit her in the same saloon that Padre hit in at one point, and then brought her out to the van. There's almost no way that she didn't get at least some exposure.
You ever seen The Lost
Boys?
Boys?
She's back to normal. She's back to normal, man. I believe that, and I believe that they didn't turn. And this is probably the best scene in the film.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the Wild West. The Padre's he's been bitten, Jack.
He's got the shotgun pointed at him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jack Crow steps between them, and he's like, "Padre, chill out. Padre, chill out." And then they have. I really do enjoy the dialogue here, the way they kind of end it with Crow basically talking Padre down from killing Montoya,
Mm-hmm.
um, discussing. He asks him, like, how long ago did she bite you? And he says 2 days
Mm-hmm.
ago. And he goes, well, I guess that gives you a 2 day lead. So
Yeah.
that's basically how they end that relationship. Is Jack and Padre are going to go clean up a mess because they got all those masters still in the jail cells. So even though Valak's dead, they have to go clean up those vampires. That's why I'm saying I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they are not vampires anymore. It seems like they're trying to tell us that they are, but yeah,
Right.
that leaves a lot of questions unanswered with how the hell did they get her into the van without her burning into flames? I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't I don't get that at all. The logic doesn't make
And
sense.
she was completely possessed, but then she was back to normal too, which that alone's like, oh, she's back to normal. That's kind of what they led the audience to think, and we don't really, I don't know.
The bond's
Yeah. I
Either
broken.
mean,
way,
We can give her
either
that.
way, my favorite scene between Jack Crow
Yeah.
and Padre. He's like, hey, did you get a boner when you fought? And he just answers him really quickly. He's like, oh, mahogany, ebony, chubby, major chubby.
Major ship.
language, Padre.
Are you possessed? Yeah. And that's the end. They're heading into the jail cells and they're going to take care of business. Um, okay, favorite characters, guys. I want to know. Mimic, you're the guest. Favorite character.
I mean, it's got to be James Woods. Like, I mean, I think he does like such a good job throughout the movie, being like, just so to the point, like just really strong. I mean, the strong Western hero, sort of like he's kind of no nonsense. I mean, even when he does joke around, it's still like no nonsense. He is. I don't know. I'm a fan of his whole shtick. Even though there's some like weird parts of the movie, I just think he does a really good job. And without his performance as is, obviously, who knows what a different actor could have done. But I think the movie would have been a lot worse and a lot less memorable. From when I was younger to now, right?
Awesome. Okay, Clark, on three. Ready? One, two, three. Padre.
Padre. Yeah.
Easy, hands down. I don't know why. I like his character development. I want to hear more from you on if there's any other reasons why you think he's your favorite character. But yeah, for me, it's just character development. I think he grew a lot and showed really how to be a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
He starts out as a milk toast with like no discernible backbone to becoming one of the most badass characters in the film at the very end, where he's able to deal with James Woods shit at the end of the film. And I don't know, I agree with you. I agree. His character development's great. And plus his faith, like he doesn't question his faith versus kind of the cardinal,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
which I'm not a religious man, but he sticks to his guns. I have respect for that.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, now it's time to get into our fun facts and trivia. And we are at roughly an hour and 11 minutes record time now, but
Mhm.
that'll get trimmed down quite a bit. But I'll try to make this as fast as I can. Some of it we've kind of mentioned or brought up, but I think it's always fun to recap. I currently have 6 fun facts and trivia. We'll start off with Bruce Campbell was Carpenter's first pick to play Montoya. I think that one's probably my favorite because I like Bruce Campbell a lot, and I think he could have done a lot with that role. But
Yeah,
I think Daniel Baldwin did a great job until the end. And I'm not
I
sure how the
feel.
film was shot.
I
Sequentially,
think. No, go ahead.
like just because sometimes we know films are shot in start to finish order.
Mm-hmm.
Most times films are shot chopped up, and they just
Right.
piece the scenes together. I feel like that's kind of how this one was done, and maybe they shot those end scenes before they shot the rest of the movie. I don't know. But I just felt like he just didn't do as good later on in the movie as he did in the beginning of the movie.
I'm. I think Bruce Campbell would have been a much better choice. Bruce Campbell was actually in, I think, Escape from L.A., which is another John Carpenter film. But no, I definitely think Bruce Campbell would have been perfect for the role of Montoya.
Yeah.
I feel like Daniel kind of he was too much of a Baldwin who didn't do anything other than be a Baldwin.
And a damn good Baldwin at that. So Carpenter and Woods had a great chemistry working together. Carpenter would film one scene to script, but then he'd let Woods improvise the next scene. Carpenter liked what Woods did a lot, so he'd let him improv a lot of his lines in the movie. So hats off to those guys for working so well together and giving us some really great, fun dialogue. One of the reasons why Carpenter did this film is because it resembled a Western film to him, and he's wanted to do a Western, for his entire career, basically, is what he was known to say. And this was his chance to kind of do that. He was super excited to be able to do that. Little known fact, this was the only film in the 90s that was financially successful for Carpenter. Everything else he did in the 90s flopped.
That was my favorite fact from all the fun facts and trivia section, is that everything else he did sucked, and he was like going to give up on directing. Well, not sucked, but was bombed at the box office, and he was going to give up on directing. And he made this one, and I think, was happy with how his Western disguised as a horror movie turned out.
Yeah.
And it was financially successful. I haven't looked at the revenue from it, but kept him around, and he made some good movies after that too.
I mean, the movie was estimated for budget at $20 million. Financially successful is, I think, your good guess is double that.
Mm-hmm.
So $40 million. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to go look at how much it made. Man with the Buick. Fun fact for you about that man, Clark. He was the writer for such things as The Walking Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Blob, The Fly 2, Tales from the Crypt, The Shawshank Redemption, and The Green Mile, just to name a few. But in this movie, he's just known as the man with the Buick. But it wasn't even
a Buick.
So I have the cumulative worldwide gross, which was 20,300,000.
So how's that successful?
I mean, it made its money back.
It made $300,000.
So to be fair, they say this is his most successful.
But that's the
movie
box
of the 90s.
office, though. That doesn't take into account like DVD sales or anything like that.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Very fun. And then the last fun fact is just how similar this and Blade were, and that they came out in the same year. In addition, Tim Guinea appears in both films, which is, I believe, Father Adam. That wraps up my fun facts and trivia. Any other fun facts or trivia that anyone else has?
Did this movie give you wood?
Major chub.
Major chub. But once we got past the motel scene, there was no more chubbies, so.
I don't know, man. When Montoya kisses Katrina at the end there, whew.
Oh, yeah. That's so, just, God, how can you
All
not
that
fall in
blood
love
just, ooh.
with that beautiful and totally not forced romantic connection between the two of them?
What a great segue into things that you can hear Mimic talk about when he streams. So why don't you go ahead and take this time to plug whatever you want to plug. It could be anything. It could be trees. It could be the fires in Australia, man. It's whatever you want. Plug away.
Yeah, so I met Curtis through Twitch. And my Twitch and YouTube channel are both Mimic the Idiot. All one word, no space. Just a fun thing to do. Apparently I plug trees. I like to do some fundraisers, so I've done a couple lately. So I did one for the Team Trees when Mr. Beast was planting all those trees. Raised like $50 for that, which, obviously not anything special at that point. But then for the I just ran one for firefighting efforts in Australia. We raised $200, which was pretty cool. Donating to organizations over there. So
I helped donate to that, just saying.
Yeah, Curtis helped donate. It's a great time. I hang out there a lot. So if you laughed at anything I said, don't feel obligated to come check me out.
I hang out there as well.
Obligated.
I hang out as well, and
Yeah.
you can come chat and hang out with us anytime. If you go to his YouTube channel, you can also see some videos where we've played Scribble.io. I want to plug that because I think that was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Some of my favorite videos that Mimic has done, And yeah, like we do that pretty regularly. I want to do
We'll
it
put a
more.
link there. Let's put a link to that video itself too in the
We'll
channel, and
do.
also we'll link his Twitch channel and his YouTube.
Yep,
You
Twitch,
definitely need to check him
YouTube,
out.
your Twitter. That specific video we can link out.
Yeah, I mean, link in that specific video has links to everything else I have in there. So,
Beautiful.
I mean,
Cool.
yeah.
Let's
I think
see.
that's all I got for plugs.
Okay, cool. I like it. Keep it simple.
Well, thank
Anything
you
that you
guys
guys
so.
have watched, read, or want to talk about? Anything before Clark's internet dies?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Uh,
Real quick, just came back from vacation, and on the plane ride back from Honduras, I saw Ready or Not, which was like a theoretically horror movie that came out at the end of last year. Girl marries into this wealthy family. They have to play this game. She picks hide and seek. Family then has to kill her for reasons. It was decent, kind of like a mix between Your Next and Knives Out. I don't know if you guys saw Knives Out at the end of last year. But you have this, rich bumbling family. It's a good movie. You should see Knives Out. But Ready or Not, it was definitely like okay. I don't know if it's to like Prime or stuff yet to like streaming releases, but definitely worth at least one watch.
Sweet.
Fun little movie. So
check it out.
It's now on my list.
number 1 on Curtis's list.
Anything
This
from you,
summer.
Clarkinator?
So I saw the trailer for The Color of Outer Space, which looks to be a good Nicolas Cage film, which is surprising to me. I heard Mandy was pretty good as well. So Nicolas Cage himself is a horror actor, so I want to take a look at that.
Maybe we'll
And when
have
I do
a
see it, I'll mention it.
dedicated Nick Cage month.
Oof, oof, oof.
that would
oof.
be
No.
Hey,
painful.
we have to torture ourselves. I told you this. We have to do bad stuff sometimes.
Oof. Oof.
Um,
Well, we could watch the vampire movie, which has some of the best overacting ever.
yes, yes. We should do that one live on Cast and stream it. Which, by the way, this is a great time to plug something that I've seen recently. Tremors. I got to watch Tremors in theater at the Alamo, and it was phenomenal. We got little gag. It was a movie party that they do at Alamo. So if you're not familiar with Alamo in your area, it's a draft house. But basically, there's more and more of these places popping up left and right where they just bring back some of our most beloved films and they like to put them out there for everyone to watch again. And this movie party came with some cool like swag. So we got candy cigarettes for every time they're smoking in Tremors, lighters for every time they're looking for their lighter, or when they're lighting the dynamite, and then poppers, like party poppers for every time. Mainly it was for the scene where Reba McEntire and Bert are in the bunker at their house and they're shooting the tremor on the wall or whatever, and
I
everybody in the
love that.
theater is just firing off the poppers.
The Alamo is great, by the way. If you have one near you, we're not paid. We don't get any money from anyone. This is a
Nope.
labor of love. But if you have
Yes.
an Alamo in your area, their events are phenomenal. They're always great. They do The Room. They do a bunch of bad movies.
Rocky
Highly
Horror
recommend them.
every year.
Rocky Horror, yeah, like every 3 months. Though I do recommend like a dedicated place, like to follow a dedicated Rocky Horror troupe if you want to really experience it.
Yes.
But yes,
So Alamo, though,
There's
the one time I went to see Rocky Horror, they brought in Frankie's Fishnets from Tempe, who's a well-known Arizona team that shadow casts the movie, and they were phenomenal. And that's the only way I want to watch that movie now, is with Frankie's Fishnets.
Frankie's Fishnets are great here in the state of Arizona. I will agree with that. Everyone, want to thank you so much for listening to us. Before we head out, we do want to plug our Instagram and our Twitter, which is the number 2 Guys Horror Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. That is the number 2 Guys Horror Pod. Also, if you have any feedback for us, if you want to leave a review on whichever platform you listen to us on, we'd really appreciate that. Also, if you want to reach out to us directly and maybe even get on the show, you can email us at the word to TWO guys and some horror at gmail.com. With that being said, we do appreciate you. Curtis, Mimic, do you guys have anything else you want to say?
No, thanks for having me on, guys. Like I said, I love the podcast. I listen all the time, so it was fun. Hopefully, I can get on again.
Yes.
We
When we
loved
do
having you
stream,
on. We'll-
I'm bringing you back.
Oh,
Recurring
yeah.
guest,
Hell
friend
yeah,
of the
dude.
show.
Yes. Awesome.
10 out of
Thank
10.
you so much, Mimic.
Yeah, of course. No, like I said, thank you guys.
And see
Also,
you all.
guys, if you didn't know this, my internet has been turning off and on this whole time. So if you hear any weird cuts, that's because Clark is the gaff bringer.
Clark Gas 2020.
Remember, you're my best friend.
Anybody want the peanut?
It's not Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I know he sounded like what's his face for a second.
Does it?
Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant.
We'll all be dead. No more rhymes now. I mean it.
Anybody
Want to